Okie dokie. Put that there. And then these here, my camera there. Okay. Hey guys. I wanted to, I'm not going to stay on long, but I wanted to come on here before I lay down and do a quick recovery live stream with you guys to help any of y'all who might be struggling tonight. So come on in, share the video, like the video, invite your friends. Share the video, like the video, invite your friends. If you are struggling tonight, go ahead and, if you feel comfortable, write in the comment section what you're struggling with, and we'll see how we can help you. And we're going to talk about relapse prevention today, okay? So if you're somebody who, you know, is a chronic relapser like me, because that's what I was, come on in, grab yourself a cup of coffee, some sweet tea, chocolate milk, maybe a brownie or a cookie, and sit your ass down and get ready, because we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk all about relapse and relapse prevention. Okay? Okay. All right. So, I am really excited to read with you, share with you guys from this book, because it is slowly but surely becoming one of my favorite books. I really, really like it a lot. So we're on chapter 11, and chapter 11 is recovery and relapse prevention and how you can help. Okay? Now, when they're talking about how you can help, they're referring to the loved one of the addict. Okay? So if you are an addict, listen closely, because this is some things that can help you prevent relapse. Okay? Okay. Once you have completed treatment, you can still have a sick. Okay, this is about helping. Okay, on your loved one's recovery. Okay. Addicts feel deeply proud of their recovery, as they should, and it's hurtful for them to see family and friends acting flippant or dismissive about their recovery and their efforts. So, if you're a family member of somebody that is in recovery and you act like it's not a big deal that they're sober, you disregard their recovery and brush it off, that hurts them. That affects them. If you're a family member and you don't support your loved one being on medication-assisted treatment, you might as well be putting a gun to their head and pulling the trigger, because you are affecting them in a negative way, because they care about what you think, okay? Your loved ones, your children, your husbands, wives, sons, daughters, aunts, uncles, whatever, they want validation from their family members. They want to be accepted and loved by their own family. And when you're looking at your addicted loved one like they are less than because of the pathway to recovery that they have chose to take, you are a detriment to their recovery. You are toxic, and you should be removed from their recovery. If they came to me and told me my mom and dad don't support me being on medication-assisted treatment, I would say get the fuck away from your parents if they're not willing to change, because they're toxic. Well, Amy, welcome to the family. You can hang out here with us. Hey, thanks. Can't break the broken. So, is it true that you can't help somebody until they want help? I mean, you can help them in different ways. You can help them by loving them, supporting them, encouraging them, letting them know that when they're ready to get help, that you have resources available. You can also help them by educating yourself on the disease of addiction. So yeah. Okay. In order to provide motivation-boosting moral support, the first thing that families must understand is that attending rehab is not a cure for addiction, whereby addicts return home and carry on with life as if nothing happened. When addicts come home from treatment, they're still new to recovery, and some may not yet even be a month out of their last drink or drug. They've absorbed a tremendous amount of information and have hopefully undergone tremendous healing. However, they still have a lot of work to do. It's important to understand that addicts returning home after treatment are somewhat fragile mentally and emotionally, still racked by cravings and thoughts of drinking or using, and still unused to the life without the one thing that was the dominant force in their lives for so long. Substance use, okay? Maintaining their motivation and self-efficacy remains a priority, and an enthusiastic and understanding support system is tremendously important. Hey Neil, will you get Jetta? Indeed, numerous research studies have shown time and time again that an active support system is a potent predictor of success in recovery. So it's really important to have a support system when you're getting sober. So if you're somebody who's trying to get sober, having your family support you is so important, right? It's very, very important. And if they don't support you, finding other people to support you is really, really important, right? Like, if your mom and dad don't support you, then maybe your sisters and your aunts and uncles will, or your friends will. Do you know what I'm saying? But like, having people that you can talk to and that you can relate to, that can listen to you, and that supports you is really freaking important. Sorry, I got skincare on my face, okay? Okay. Okay, so listen to this, family members. Besides offering moral support, hey, what's up, man? Perhaps the most useful contribution that families can make is by becoming knowledgeable about addiction and recovery. Exactly what you are doing by reading this book. However, family and friends who are knowledgeable about recovery must be careful about how they use this knowledge. Let me explain. With the know-how about addiction, recovery, and relapse prevention that you'll come away with after reading this book, it can be easy to begin making suggestions to your addicted loved one. As we've previously discussed, you must always remember that you are not your loved one's therapist, nor are you their sponsor. You're too close to them for that. Your advice and suggestions will likely soon be perceived as nagging and pushing, and this can drive a wedge between you and your loved one. As well, it can make your loved one feel that you're being judgmental about the adequacy of their recovery efforts and know-how. So whenever you love an addict or an alcoholic, this happened with me and my husband, okay? Because we are emotionally involved with each other, when I would try to give him suggestions about getting into AA or NA, going to therapy, us doing some kind of counseling together, me doing step studies with him and asking him to come to our step studies that I was doing on my YouTube channel and stuff like that, he pushed me far away, because I'm too close to him for him to take suggestions from me. To him, he looks at me as competition, and my husband looks at me as a know-it-all in recovery. And honestly, I feel like he feels like he's less than because of how open and out there I am with my own recovery and the things that I do for my job. I think it makes my husband feel insecure. You know what I'm saying? And so if I'm always going to him and telling him, you need to do your 12 steps, you need to go to therapy, let's go to it fucking is annoying, right? And he doesn't want to hear it from me. But let another dude that's in recovery that he's friends with tell him the same damn thing I told him and watch him do it. You know? And that's how it is. That's how it is. Okay. So as a person in recovery, it's really important for us to do things like recovery activities and support groups, therapy, meetings, reading literature that can help us, right, in our recovery. If we are just coming home from rehab, okay, going into our bedroom, shutting the door, and expecting for our lives to change just because we went to treatment for 30 days, right? And now we're not leaving our home. We are in for a rude awakening, okay? No, nothing changes if nothing changes. If you just go into treatment, hear a few things that they have to say, and then come home and just go back to your normal everyday activities, then you are going to struggle tremendously. Why? Because when we use drugs and alcohol, you guys, what happens is our brain, when those drugs come into our brain and our brain releases all this dopamine. Push, push. It's like, euphoria, right? And so what happens is our brain remembers the feelings produced by drugs and alcohol. It's called euphoric recall. And so we will literally be at home, and all of a sudden the thought will come into our mind about the last time we shot up and how great it felt, or the last time we had sex, high on methamphetamine, right? Especially when you're fresh out of treatment and you don't have any kind of practices that you're practicing to help you stay sober, to stay sober and fight those thoughts, right? And so you could be up in your room all by yourself and you're having all these thoughts about getting fucked up. And when you don't have anyone to talk to about that, or say, hey, dude, I'm struggling. I've been thinking about getting high. Or, hey, let's go to a meeting. I don't know what's wrong with me, but man, I'm telling you what. Like, if you're all by yourself inside your head, you are trying to fight the demon by yourself, the demon of addiction, right? And so the demon of addiction, you guys, is like, he has like 12 legs, right? And so you're trying to fight him like this, and he's got all of his other legs like, bam, upside the head, bam. I mean, it is all so encompassing around you, and you are getting like knocked upside the head, in your ass, on your stomach. You're just getting knocked around for a loop because of addiction just being all encompassing, and it took over our whole life, and we have to learn a new way to live, a new way to cope. A lot of us don't have any coping skills, right? And so what our coping skill was getting high, right? So when we would have an argument with our husband or wife or our boyfriend or girlfriend, we would go and get high. Jan pissed me off. Let's get loaded. Or my husband thinks that I'm not spending the money on the credit card. I'm buying everything I want, and I'm getting some cocaine. Or I'm depressed, so I'm going to smoke me a bunch of blunts, and smoke. And that's our way of coping, because what do we want to do? We don't want to cope. We want to not feel those feelings. Because coping would be to feel the feelings and move through those feelings in a healthy way, right? Let's say you're having feelings of grief. Maybe you lost a loved one. Maybe you lost a friend to an overdose, okay? And you are very, 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 very sad, okay? You're sad, you're crying, you can't believe it. You're in denial that you lost your friend. And then you move into anger that your friend was out there getting fucked up, and the fact that they even went out and got dope and fucking overdose, right? And then your grief moves into overwhelming sadness, right? Where you just can't even get out of the bed, and you're just crying and sobbing, and there's these 5 stages that you go through when you're grieving, right? A loved one or somebody that you care about. And so if you are checking out of life and getting fucked up so you don't have to feel that shit, right? What's going to happen? You're not going to have any closure. So you might get high that night, but when you're not high, all those feelings that you feel about your sister who overdosed are going to come back because you didn't deal with them. You didn't process them. You didn't cope with them. You know how I know that? Because I personally experienced it. My best friend from the time I was in kindergarten till the time I graduated high school, her name was Nikki Beasley, Nicole Marie Beasley. or no, Mary Nicole Beasley. I'm Nicole Marie DeMeo. Mary Nicole Beasley. And I'll never forget it. We became friends when we were like in 6th grade, right? And she had, this tooth got knocked out somehow. And so she walked up to me on the playground and she had a fake tooth in and she could flip it up. She could flip it at you and go, and I was like, and I just remember from that day forward, we became the bestest of friends, you guys. And we ended up graduating high school and getting addicted to methamphetamine together. I was just smoking and snorting it, but she was injecting it. And then she started to inject Oxycontin. I didn't even know what Oxycontin were yet. And she got married like really young, like 19 years old. And her and her husband were amazing. I was in a very abusive relationship. And I remember I ran away from the abuse and I had nowhere to go. My parents wouldn't let me come there because I was getting high still. And so Nikki and her husband James created me a bedroom, got me furniture, and moved me into their house. I had lost my job because my boyfriend had blacked my fucking eye, and my boss was like, if you don't leave him, I'm going to fire you, and they ended up firing me, and I ended up not being able to pay my car payment or my insurance or anything, and my best friend paid in my car payment, paid for my insurance, paid for my credit cards, for 60 days until I could get back on my feet and get my money right? And so she was really, really, really my very best friend. My mom, my mom made our her bridesmaid dresses for the wedding because I was her maid of honor. And then my friend Sonia was one of the bridesmaids, and we wore these beautiful like pale yellow dresses that were one shouldered like this. They were so pretty. But anyways, they took me in and they took care of me until I could get on my feet. And so I'll never forget it. She had gotten really bad off on Oxycontin, and she thought that her husband was cheating on her. They got into an argument that morning, and she was calling his phone, but it was going straight to voicemail because he was mad at her and he shut it off, right? Well, the next thing I know, I think I'd went over to my parents' house to like visit or something. I got a phone call from our mutual friend Amanda, and she said, you have to get over to the house quick. Nikki shot herself. And I mean, I jumped in my fucking Ford Focus and I flew like a bat out of fucking hell. And when I got there, the police were already there and they had yellow caution tape everywhere, and she was gone. They had taken her into the ambulance and she was dead already. She died. She had went into the bedroom my bedroom, sat on the bed, took a bunch of covers that were folded and put them over her chest and shot herself in the chest. So when they got there, she was not dead. She died, she died later on, like on the way there. And it was tragic, and I was hysterical. And guess what I decided to do instead of cope with my feelings? I decided to take copious amounts of Xanax bars. Copious. Okay? I decided to show up to my best friend's funeral so high on Xanaxes that I could barely fucking walk. Okay? And honestly, I'm so mad at myself for doing that. So mad. I was hysterical, I was crying, and I was fucking messed up on Xanax. And I never ever got to cope with the fact that she passed away. And so what happened was when I finally went to treatment for my first time, I went into treatment, and when I got there, I talked about my best friend committing suicide and what happened, okay? And they were like, we're going to do an exercise with you, and this is going to help you. And that's when they taught me the chair exercise, where I wrote a letter to Nikki telling her exactly how I felt about what she had done, taking her own life. Then I wrote a letter that was from Nikki back to me, responding to my letter, and then I got to write her a letter telling her goodbye. And I sat in a chair, and then somebody else sat in the chair. That was Nikki. And it was so emotional. When I tell you guys, I cried my eyes out. But guess what? When I left that treatment center, it was like I finally felt like my friend was at rest. You know what I mean? Like I could deal with it. So anyways, I wanted to share that with you guys about, you know, coping with our feelings, because when we use drugs and alcohol to, you know, drown out the way we feel, it might seem like it's helping you right there, like it's helping you and that you feel better, but it's temporary relief. It's temporary relief, and once that fucking high wears off, and once the party's over, then it all comes rushing back, man. Okay. Okay. So there's three different stages in relapse. Okay. So let's see what this guy says. I've met, interviewed, and heard the stories of hundreds of people coming back from relapse, and I've noticed some common threads that seem to bind many of them together. My observations agree with the findings in the addictions research literature, as well as written testimonials that I've read from people who've relapsed going back decades. Understanding how relapse happens is important so that recovering addicts can recognize the process in themselves and engage their relapse prevention tools when they see themselves headed that way. Likewise, understanding relapse is important for people who are close to recovering addicts so that they can intervene if necessary. My recovery sponsor is an older guy in his 70s with many years of sobriety and a lot of experience in helping newcomers. He amazes me by how he can almost smell relapse in people. Many times, he's whispered in my ear at a meeting, "See that guy over there? He's going to relapse in the next couple of weeks." Honestly, I've never known him to be wrong about it. Some people can really sense when someone is on the path to relapse, and that brings up the most important point about relapse. Relapse is almost always a process, not a spontaneous event. One study found that relapse usually develops over a period of at least 3 weeks, often longer. So teaching addicts in recovery to recognize and arrest the process of relapse before it plays out is a cornerstone of relapse prevention. We'll discuss exactly how to do that and how these actions can be planned out and practiced in advance as part of an effective relapse prevention strategy. The relapse process has been broken down into 3 distinct stages. Stage 1. Stage 1 is an emotional relapse, okay? This book is understanding and helping an addict and keeping your sanity. Emotional relapse. At this stage, addicts aren't thinking about going back to substance use, and they don't want to relapse. However, their emotions and behaviors are funneling them towards relapse. During treatment, addicts are taught to self-monitor for the red flags for emotional relapse. Do you know what the red flags for emotional relapse are? They are hungry. Are you hungry? Are you angry? Are you lonely? And are you tired? So, the acronym is HALT, as in stop. HALT. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. When you are feeling any of these feelings, right? What it's telling you is that you need to stop and you need to eat something. You need to, what is going on? Why are you angry? Call your support system. Call your sponsor. If you're feeling lonely, 9 times out of 10, the reason you're feeling lonely is not because you're lonely. It's because you're not used to being with yourself. You're not used to being surrounded by other people that are in active addiction, who are, pumping you up and giving you what you want. And so if you're lonely, go and surround yourself with people who are going to lift you up, who are in recovery. Go to a meeting, go hang out with your family, your mom and dad, brothers and sisters. Do something that's conducive for you in recovery. And if you're tired, pause, take a nap, eat something, and take care of your body. This acronym is telling you, stop, it's time to take care of you, feed your body, let your body rest, and get with people who support you and love you. Okay? So, hungry, angry, lonely, tired, so that they can recognize trouble brewing and engage their recovery tools. The emotional relapse stage can be recognized when recovering addicts begin, number one, engaging in denial. It's not that big of a deal. I mean, I can have one drink. It's not like I'm an alcoholic or something. I just got 5 DWIs. I'm not an alcoholic. Bottling up emotions, being angry and not talking about it, grieving and not letting it out, sadness and not letting it out, right? A lot of the times people, when they will bottle emotions up, emotions that I used to bottle up were angry emotions, and when I would bottle them up, I would have outbursts where I would punch a wall or slam shit down or slam a fucking door, you know what I'm saying? And that's how, like, that anger would come out of me in, like, spurts of, like, rage, And so instead of doing that, right, like, I need to sit down, I need to think about what I'm angry about. Am I angry or am I afraid? A lot of the times whenever I feel angry and I'm reacting like that, it's because I'm afraid of something. Fear of rejection, fear of being alone, fear of not being good enough, fear of not being successful, right? But if you still come to the conclusion that you're angry, right? Think about what you're angry about. Can you do something to change it, right? Can you do something to change it in a positive way, right? Or is it just like, I'm angry and the only thing I can do is whoop somebody's ass, right? If you can't do anything to change it in a positive way, you need to take some deep breaths. 1, 2, 3, 4. What am I angry for? That kind of thing. And try to breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. And talk about it. Talk about it. Anybody that'll listen to you. If you're feeling angry, sit down, talk to somebody, call somebody up. Man, when I tell you what, whenever I'm angry, I come on live. I just went off on my Facebook page. I was literally going off for about 45 minutes at the beginning of my Facebook Live. And it's because I was angry. I was angry and I was hurt, and so I let it all out. Not attending recovery meetings and not sharing at meetings, self-isolating, neglecting self-care, feeling restless, irritable, and discontent, and experiencing thoughts of substance use to escape tension and bottle up negative feelings. Stage 2 is the mental relapse. In this stage, motivation for recovery and efforts at recovery activities erode, and the addict becomes increasingly attracted to the idea of returning to substance use. This stage of relapse is characterized by bargaining, thinking up scenarios where substance use would be okay, rationalizing going to high-risk environments such as parties with old drinking and using buddies, rationalizing relapse by committing to only occasional substance use or by switching to a different addictive substance, craving and persuasive thoughts about substance use, glamorizing or engaging in fond memories of past substance use, rationalizing connecting with people, places, and things associated with drugs, downplaying the consequences of your drug use, lying, convincing oneself of the viability of ways to control substance use contrary to past experience, seeking out opportunities where relapse would be possible, and full out planning a relapse. Okay. Occasional thoughts of drinking or using in recovery are common and aren't in themselves an indication of mental relapse. You will notice that the word rationalizing appears several times in the description of a mental relapse, as well as the word bargaining. So we'll make up excuses of why it's okay for us to use and drink, right? Oh, it's not that big of a deal if I get high tonight. If I get high tonight, I won't get high Tuesday and Wednesday, so that way I'll be good by Friday. You know what I'm saying? Like, I used to do this. I won't take Xanax anymore because when I take Xanax, I crash my car into brick walls. I'm only going to shoot methamphetamine. Or how about this one? I can't handle my liquor, so I'm staying away from hard alcohol, and I'm only going to be drinking beer and wine. Or how about this one? I got to stay away from those benzodiazepines. It's because of benzos that I fucking overdose every time. If I could just stay away from the benzos, then I can shoot my heroin in peace without overdosing. You know what I mean? And that's what I would do. I would literally do that, okay? Because in my mind, it was because of Xanax that I would overdose. And I still catch myself saying that too, that if it wasn't for them damn Xanaxes, you know, I wouldn't have overdosed. Them pesky Xanaxes. So yeah, if you find yourself like, you've done all this time staying sober, not going around people that you use, not hanging out with your old friends, and now all of a sudden you're deciding to call up Joe, who you used to shoot dope with, and he's literally in active addiction and you're sober, like, what is the point? Why are you going to his house, right? There's only one reason why. Because you have nothing in common with Joe unless y'all are getting high together. Because when you're not getting high, you have a job, you have a car, you have a family who cares about you, you're in college, you're making good money, and Joe is cooking methamphetamine in his trailer. So, stage 3, physical relapse. Physical relapse. This is where addicts begin using substances again in lapses and or relapses. These usually engage physical relapse after they've had the time to convince themselves that it's okay to drink or use again during the mental relapse, and they've had some time to get used to the idea. They often plan ahead for the exact moment they'll relapse, usually during a window of opportunity during which they believe they won't get caught. I've seen lots of people carry on the charade that they're still in recovery long after they have physically relapsed. Often they'll even continue going to recovery support group meetings. I was in sober living in 2010 and I relapsed. I had never shot up opiates in my life, and I had relapsed on shooting Roxy's. And I was I was snorting and shooting Roxy's every single day, going to work, coming home, and living in sober living. Going to the meeting, chairing the meeting with my friend Tanya. I actually went to Cocaine Anonymous at this time. And if you've ever been to Cocaine Anonymous, you know that they don't play at Cocaine Anonymous, okay? And every single one of them knew that I was high. Every single person in Cocaine Anonymous knew that I was high. And when I tell you this, when I got done and I left that meeting, my phone was ringing off the hook. And they weren't calling me and going, "Are you okay?" No. "Girl, I know you was fucked up sitting up there sharing that meeting. What's going on? I'm coming to your house right now." You know what I mean? I was like, ah! Because I was like, my sponsor. And at Cocaine Anonymous here in Little Rock, it's predominantly black people. Like, I'm the only person that's not black, right? There's like maybe one other a white person there, me, a Mexican Italian person there, and like everybody else is black. And so they are calling me the fuck out, you know? And they cared about me. And they also, you know, I was fucked up disrespecting the whole program and disrespecting everybody that was there to get a good meeting, you know? And so, of course, you know, when I got sobered up, I made amends for that. But, you know, when I was fucked up, I thought, nobody can tell. I'll be fine. It's not that big of a deal, you know? But it was a big deal, and everybody could tell, and I wasn't fooling anybody. And so eventually, the counselor over the sober living, she also went to Cocaine Anonymous, showed up at my apartment and was like, "Hey, you either have to take a drug test or you have to move out." And I was like, "Oh, I'll move out," because I knew I was going to fail, you know? So, okay. So let's talk about really fast, because I'm fixing to lay down, you guys. I'm tired. Okay. So let's say you're in your process and you are in a mental relapse, right? You're bargaining, you're thinking about using, you're making excuses of why you could. What is some things that you can do to interrupt that thought process, right? Some things that you can do to get yourself up out of um, that that thought process. Okay, so let's see. This says addicts are taught the stages of relapse and provided with an action plan to interrupt the process as soon as they find themselves on the path to trouble. The earlier on in the relapse cascade that individuals recognize and take action to interrupt the process, the higher the likelihood of averting disaster. Okay, so what can you do to interrupt it? What I think you could do is oh, thanks, Robin, for subscribing. Welcome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. What you can do to interrupt that relapse process, what I would do is I would be like, okay, I need to talk to somebody and I need people to like rally around me. So I would call like my 2 sober friends, my sponsor, and I would sit down with them and I'd say, listen, you guys, like I have been thinking about getting fucked up. I have literally been telling myself it's okay, it's not that big of a deal, and I could do it one last time, and I am scared. Like I know that I'm headed down a bad pathway, you know? And I would get into, I would literally put myself in a meeting every single day, every day. Okay, I would go to work, I would leave work, go home, eat something, go to a meeting, right? And stay plugged in, plugged in, plugged in. I would also do service work. I would go with them everywhere they would let me go. Okay, you want me to go to the jail with you? Okay, and tell my story? Okay, you want me to go over here and pick up cigarette butts off the ground? Okay, you want me to help so-and-so because they need a ride? Okay, like getting outside of myself and being able to help other people, what ends up doing is it distracts me, first of all, from, focusing on poor, pitiful me and how I suck ass, and it helps me to be able to help somebody else. It helps me with my self-esteem. It helps me with helping myself, because while I'm helping somebody else, guess what? I'm teaching myself while I'm teaching them. While I'm talking about relapse prevention, I'm literally telling it to myself, and so it's helping me at the end of the day. And so, getting out of my own way and letting somebody else kind of guide me, and hey, Nicole, come to this meeting with me, let's go out to eat. Let's go and go to this big book study over here. Let's go to this Mara meeting. Let's go to this therapy, and just have somebody to help me and to just help me stay accountable. And I'm telling you what, y'all, I'm the queen of accountability. All right. And I know how to keep myself accountable. I get on the motherfucking camera and I'd be like, what's up, you guys? I'm struggling, okay? And that is, like right now, I'm telling you this, my TikTok, my Instagram, my Facebook, my YouTube are literally my virtual diaries. And when I struggle with anything at all, I will sign on here and I will talk about it. And you guys seen a great example of that yesterday. Okay. So these are some things that I talked to you guys about yesterday that helped me to not use drugs and alcohol, that helped me to stay away. I talked about remembering when I took my son to CPS and I had to hand my son over to CPS and walk away. And my son was not even 1 year old. He was asleep when I had to give him to CPS. So all I could think about was how he was going to wake up and I wasn't going to be there. And he was going to be afraid. And I had to go put myself in treatment that day. And anytime I think about using, I think about my son. And I think about having to surrender him to Child Protective Services. And if you got kids and that don't scare the shit out of you, oh, I don't know what will then, because that is fucked up. Follow the tape all the way through to the end. So a lot of the times whenever we're thinking about getting high and relapsing, what are we doing? Euphoric recall. We're only remembering the way drugs made us feel good. We're only remembering the fun we had, the good sex, the money we made, right? All the activities that we did when we were high, if we did activities, right? We're only remembering the positive experiences produced by drugs and alcohol. So in order to combat relapse, we have to think past the positive. We have to say, okay, yeah, sure. It feels good at first when I'm getting high. But then I end up running out of money, and then I have to suck my drug dealer's D to get drugs. Or I have to steal from my parents to get more money. Or I have to go shoplift. Or how about this? I have to lie and cheat and manipulate. And I don't want to have to do that anymore. I don't want to have to put myself in those bad situations, right? And so playing the tape all the way through to what you're going to feel like the next day after you get high, right? Well, you're not going to feel good anymore. You're going to be hungover. You're going to be tired. You're going to be ashamed. And you're going to feel a lot of guilt. You're going to be angry at yourself for going back. And you're going to wish that you hadn't. So playing that tape all the way through is really important. Okay? And actively avoiding high-risk situations. Okay? Straight up. That's the easiest one. Don't go to the dope man's house. If you're triggered when you drive down 12th Street, don't go down 12th Street. Okay? If you're looking for a job and you're an alcoholic, don't get a job in a motherfucking bar. Okay? You ain't no bartender. Okay? Don't do it. It's a trick. Okay? Actively stay away from those kind of things. Okay? Like now that I have been sober for a little while, you guys, I can go into a restaurant. I can go into a bar and grill. It doesn't bother me, right? But when I first got sober and I would see people drinking margaritas and it would have the frost around the glass, ooh, and the lime on there and the salt, I'd be like, like seriously. And so I would not go into restaurants that served alcohol because I wanted to have a drink, And so, just like if you know that at this certain side of town, that's where everybody sells crack and smokes crack at, because there's a crack-a-lack part of town here where I live, and I know I could walk down the street and basically ask anybody on the side of the road if they had a crack rock, and they would, right? So I'm not going to go to the crack rocks. I'm not going to go that way. I'm going to go the opposite way, right? If I have to go to work, I'll take the long way, right? Let's say when I listen to rap music, it triggers me. It makes me think of, especially Lil Wayne. It makes me think of the days when I was shooting up Roxy's, like hardcore. Okay, guess what? I didn't listen to Lil Wayne. I didn't listen to rap music a lot when I first got sober. Why? Because I would be flooded with memories whenever a certain songs would come on. And so what I did was I just listened to other music, And I practiced retraining my brain to play the tape all the way through and to remember the worst time I ever had an addiction, which was losing custody of my son. And I used my child as motivation, right, to stay sober until I could love myself. Then when I started to love myself, I started to stay sober for me instead of just my son. So I hope that helps you guys with relapse prevention. And I just want you guys to know that I really appreciate all of y'all's support who have commented nice things on my video from yesterday. I really, really appreciate it a lot. I was in a really bad place. I was really afraid. I have never been in the situation where my drug of choice was in front of me ever in the almost 8 years I've been sober. And so when that happened, I was really fucked up about it. Like, it affected me. Okay. And so the only thing I knew to do was what I have been teaching myself to do all this time, which was reach out to my community, tell on my disease. And that's what I did. And that's why I didn't get high. And so I appreciate you guys for being kind, because there's some assholes being fucking shitty and fucking, just the internet drives me insane. So for those of you guys that are not being that way, thank you. You guys give me hope, right? Because that's what recovery is about. Recovery is about supporting each other. I should be able to come here and tell you guys what happened and you guys help me go through that process. It's so crazy to me that people will like, oh, she's lying. She went and got that. What are you serious? Like, what? It's beyond me. It's like people want to see something They want to see me fail. And I just don't understand why. Like, it's almost like they would have been happy if I had relapsed, you know? And so, for those of you guys that are not like that, thank you so much, because your support is helping me stay sober. So, I love you guys. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about a lapse versus a relapse. And I don't know what, a lapse versus a relapse. And let me think what's next after that. I don't know, but we'll be talking about lapses versus relapses, and we'll be talking about we'll be talking about overcoming guilt and shame. We'll be talking about a lapse versus a relapse, and then we're going to talk about returning to recovery after a relapse and overcoming guilt and shame. Okay? Okay. So I love you guys. I'll see y'all tomorrow.